We are in Colombia, a paradise for illegal businesses and cartels. Here we meet Chris, who has just left prison after 15 years. The first thing he does is go to the local cemetery. The grave he visits bears the name Leonor. Chris begins his revenge. That afternoon, he waits outside a mansion, spying from the bushes. He spots his target. A young woman travels in a luxury car, accompanied by her bodyguards. Chris follows her to an elite school where the young woman stays for class. At the end of the day, Elisa returns home, where her father is waiting to hear how everything went. However, as an average teenager, she is great at ignoring her father and staying glued to her phone. Vicente, her father, tells her there will be a party with important partners and expects her presence. It is not much to ask, considering the golden life he leads. Vicente is ruthless in business, but in the case of his daughter, she is his whole life and his weakness. After his wife's death, she is all he has left. We shift scenes to a downtown cafe closing. Alex, the manager, is feeling nervous. A man came in and ordered a cake, but hours have passed and he hasn't touched it, or even said a word. He just sits in the back, looking eerie, and now she must ask him to leave. He's incredibly strange. When he approaches her, he grabs her by the arm and forces her to sit down. It is then that she notices his hand is metal, concealing a sharp dagger pointing at her. The subject cuts the cake with the dagger and gives some to Alex, whose heart beats very fast and fear consumes her. Like messengers from heaven, a patrol car stops outside and the red and blue lights make him tense noticeably. A police officer approaches and, seeing the dagger in the man's hand, draws her weapon, ordering him to stand up slowly and put his hands behind his back. Instead, he just walks away. Knowing she cannot shoot without consequences and fearing for Alex's safety, the officer decides to let her go. They close the shop together, and the officer offers to drive her home, but that will not happen. The stranger exits the back seat and murders the police officer in one move. Then he approaches Alex and subdues her from behind. The next day, Elisa heads to class when a man starts pounding on the car window. He looks like a beggar, but it is actually Chris. He steals the car and kidnaps Elisa. When he catches her, he puts her in the trunk and flees at full speed. Vicente is furious at his employee's actions. Both stand on plastic to avoid staining the carpet with their blood. Meanwhile, Chris drives away from the city, but when he tries to offer Elisa some water, she suddenly breaks free and bolts into the dense forest. He eventually catches up and explains that he means her no harm. He was a close friend of her mother and has proof. The photo shows Chris, Vicente, and Elisa's late mother, who made Chris promise to find her and keep her away from Vicente. A plan delayed 15 years because Chris was imprisoned by Vicente. To prove he won't hurt her, Chris hands his weapon to Elisa, but they must leave now. He will explain the rest later. She tries to force him to take her back, but Chris would rather die by her bullet than be caught by Vicente and his men. The girl keeps screaming and hitting the seat, causing Chris to lose his patience and reveal that he is her father. Nick, Vicente's right-hand man, calls the Raven, the guy with the metal hand, to tell him he has information. At a cafe in the mountains, Chris tells Elisa his version of what happened. He is convinced Vicente killed his mother, and that the diamond necklace Elisa is wearing was a gift from him. Suddenly a weapon appears, and several men surround them. They tell Chris that what will happen is clear. Elisa will go with them, and he will stay there. If he resists, they will kill him. Chris does not give them time to play tough and attacks immediately. However, he is outnumbered, and the leader takes Elisa away in his car. By the time Chris takes down all the henchmen, it is already too late. Elisa has disappeared, and he has nothing to help him track her, so he goes back to the cafe and brutally beats one of the men until he admits where they are taking her. The men are delivering Elisa to someone they call the caretaker, who plans to collect the reward for her. Shortly after, gunfire begins to be heard, and through the cameras, we see how the Corvo is killing everyone. He wants the reward and is causing a bloodbath. With every man he kills, the Raven gets closer to the caretaker. Elisa knows she must leave before it is too late, so she decides to knock out the old man. While the Crow has no problem killing men and women alike, soon none are left. Fortunately, Chris appears determined to get his daughter back, but first he must defeat the guy with the iron hand and superhuman strength. Chris strikes the giant with all his might, but nothing seems to work. The Raven continues his pursuit of Elisa, and Chris only does what he can to delay him. Finally, Chris yells to flee. Suddenly, the keeper appears with a massive rifle, sparking chaos. Chris attempts to flee, but the Raven intercepts and defeats him. Just before the execution, Elisa arrives on scene. The young woman manages to steal a car and strikes the crow with force, knocking him out of the fight and saving her father. Father and daughter run toward the town, but Chris is injured. That metal impact may have broken a rib, and he needs time to catch his breath. Meanwhile, the Raven bandages his wounds and heads in the direction where Chris fled earlier. Not far from there, Chris tells Elisa about the last time he saw his mother. She visited him in prison and confessed that Vicente smothered her, controlling her whole life, and she could not take it anymore. She planned to escape and take Elisa with her, but she never succeeded. 3 weeks later, Chris learned she died. At the caretaker's casino, Vicente witnesses the destruction the Raven has caused and gets nervous. He never called him, and now it is revealed Nick is acting behind his back. On the other hand, Elisa is fed up with running. Her life with Vicente was perfect, and she is unsure if Chris is telling the truth, so she steals his car. Just then, the Corvo appears and starts following her, catching up as she tries to use a public phone. The young woman runs to nearby houses for help, but in this place no one helps anyone, and everyone refuses to open the door. Chris reaches the Raven's car, but he is already with Elisa, giving her the same maniacal speech he gave Alex that night. He even tries to give her an apple. Who knows what perverse thoughts cross his mind? Elisa must decide between one hand or the other, so she chooses the apple, but spits it in his face. Chris arrives to save her, and a shootout ensues. By the time he recovers and reloads, the Corvo has his shotgun at Elisa's head, leaving Chris with no choice but surrender. The psychopath subdues them both, planning to execute Chris in the middle of the street. He wants to inflict immense pain first, purely for his own amusement. With every blow, Chris's bones fracture until Elisa screams for him to stop and the crow knocks her out. The next morning, Chris wakes up hanging from a tree, with only a tire standing between him and death. He has spent hours keeping his balance until Vicente finds him. Vicente kicks the tire and Chris starts to suffocate, but then cuts the rope. Nick is eager to kill Chris, but the crow has Elisa, and for the moment they need him. Also, Vicente knows something is wrong. In the car, Vicente confesses to Chris that he had nothing to do with the death of Elisa's mother. They both loved her. He admits she betrayed him and sent him to prison. His wife took her own life. He had nothing to do with it, but now Elisa is at risk because of him. Then, the Raven calls Vicente to arrange a meeting and reveals Nick tipped him off about Elisa. He never wanted the money. He only wanted to kill Vicente. As soon as he hangs up, Vicente grabs his gun and shoots Nick in the back of the head, killing him before he can take the throne. Vicente tells Chris the Crow is a threat. They were partners once, but his bloodlust was insatiable. One night, Vicente sent 15 men to kill him, and they failed. All they found was his hand. El Corvo bit it off to free himself, and now he is a walking demon who has his daughter. Shortly after, Vicente arrives at the meeting point and frees Chris. This is about Elisa. Once she is safe, they will settle their unfinished business. Unarmed, Chris moves through the place, just like Vicente's men, who are killed one by the crow. With every passing minute, Vicente is left more alone, until they finally corner him. The Raven has Elisa on a conveyor belt. He plans to kill her horribly and have Vicente witness it. He can save her, but he must cut off her hand. This is revenge. Vicente runs to the end of the line in a desperate attempt to stop the machine, while Chris distracts the Raven, but the psychopath altered everything so that nothing can shut down the mechanism. The huge machine swallows everything Vicente throws, and Elisa is getting closer. In the final fight, every blow Chris takes from the metal fist hurts deeply, but fighting for his daughter's life, he cannot back down now. During the fight, the Crow confesses that Nick planned the death of Elisa's mother and that he enjoyed every second. Back on the tape, time is running out and Vicente is considering doing what the Crow wants: cut off Elisa's hand. Fueled by anger and vengeance, Chris fights with all his strength, but the Crow overwhelms him and stabs him in the abdomen. Then he returns to Vicente and subdues him so he can watch his daughter turn into thousands of pieces. Severely wounded, Chris screams at Elisa to use the diamonds. The young woman places the necklace in the chain. Their hardness damages the machine, and the chain breaks. Together, Vicente and Chris lunge at the Raven and throw him over the edge, but he grabs Vicente, pulling him down too. The film ends with father and daughter sharing a hug after facing near death. Soon after, Chris takes her to see her mother's true grave so they can tell her the promise was kept. That concludes this action story. If you want more similar recaps, choose one from the screen right now.